What's up? It's Andy coming to you bright and early on a Tuesday. How early, you ask? Well, if you looked outside right now, it looks like that Josh Hartnett movie 30 Days of Night in Alaska, and a bunch of vampires are about to descend into town. It's so early, I walked by the early bird's house. You know, that guy who theoretically catches the worm? And I heard him snoring. And why? Because I need to get you guys those early sniff. The early sniff catches the good price. And there are a couple on this slate. If you wait long enough, who knows? The total might change. The price may get significantly worse. There's one that I like where I have a feeling the price is going to get worse. A whole bunch of reasons would indicate the price is going to get worse. So maybe by the time I give it to you, you'll get it in at a decent price. And then we can just kind of relax until game time. But we know you're going to have many bets between the time you watch this and the time that games kick off tonight. As far as last night goes, we kind of forecasted, and by we, I clearly mean me, because none of you have the ability to do that. We mentioned yesterday, little assist from Carlo. It was going to be a little bit sloppy, and both of those games were sloppy. And everybody who is so thrilled to take the Avalanche because, oh, they were playing great. Well, we're about the Avalanche. Yeah, that girl got you again, you know. You thought they were wifey material. But in all honesty, it's just a tough spot to take a team on the road coming out of All-Star break. And the Rangers were able to come back and win in overtime. The Islanders game, another sloppy game. It was under. Anything that you said with under in that game that you took, you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself. Yesterday I mentioned I'm going under on point props for all the guys listed at 1.5. Under 1.5 on Matthews, under 1.5 on Nylander, under 1.5 on Marner. Those all hit. As far as the under 4.5 shots on goal, the Nylander did not hit. The Matthews did hit. In the other game, little mixed bag of nuts there. The Zibanejad point came through, but the Kreider one didn't, despite the fact that he had 8 shots on goal. Got ratted with the Rantanen over on shots on goal. But you know how I say to you, hey, if anything comes up last minute, I'll communicate it to you on the Patreon. Well, interestingly enough, during the day, I saw the Colorado Avalanche added Zach Parise, not to the team, but the sportsbook added him to the player props. Now, if you pay attention to player props on sportsbooks, they kind of only list players from the first and second or key contributors who are on the third line and also on like the second power play. They don't put random lingers. I mean, Arturi Lehkonen was not on the board for shots on goal or points, but I saw Zach Parise pop during the day. His name was on there. You could bet against him to register a point. And I'm thinking, a 40-year-old in his first game, how many minutes is he going to get? There's no way he's getting power play time. So I gave that one out. I said, let's bet on Parise under half of a point. And we can combine that with some of those other things. And those are the kinds of things you get over there on the Patreon, just so you know, in case you were wondering. What are you wondering about for Tuesday? Which price is potentially going to get worse? Well, what I'm thinking is the Boston Bruins, who are going to be playing the Calgary Flames, who just traded their best player, Lindholm, to the Vancouver Canucks. Now they bring in Kuzmenko. They're going to do some line juggling. That's kind of waving the white flag for the season. You know, you're trading away your best player. It's kind of saying, hey, we're starting to get the picks. We're starting the rebuild. And the Bruins are a team, because I know sometimes you don't want to take, oh, very good team against bad team. There are certain teams that screw you in that scenario. Teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs. You want to take them against the Sharks. You want to take them against the Chicago Blackhawks. You do so at your own peril. But the Boston Bruins are pretty reliable. Even before the All-Star break, their last game was on the road at Philadelphia. Philadelphia really needed a win. So that looks like a potential trap spot for Boston. Right now, Boston destroyed them. So Boston, for whatever reason, and one great thing that you have from them, no matter who's playing goalie, you're getting the Vezina winner from last year, or maybe a Vezina candidate this year with Swayman. So you know you're going to be getting good goaltending. I'm sure the rest was good for a team like Boston, who plays a pretty tough style, one that kind of resembles playoff hockey. And I think they'll be able to take care of business. Now, I say this is a fairly decent price. I know you look at this and say, in what world? I love that guy. In what world is minus 185 a great price? In a world where if we wait a couple hours and it's minus 240, and then I ask you, what do you think a good price would this be? The same idiot would be like, well, maybe if you gave it to me at 190. Well, that's what it is right now. So when I say it's a good price, I mean in comparison to what it A, should be, or B, might be in a few hours. So, complainer guy, you want to knock it down? Well, I guess maybe you haven't been watching for years. You've learned a grand total of 0 lessons. What are we going to do? We're going to combine it with a player from the Boston Bruins. If we take Marchand, that brings this game to a classic like -105, -110. But how about we use a little trickle-down snakeonomics and we take Charlie Coyle. We take Charlie Coyle, who plays with Pasternak and Marchand on the top line. He's on the second power play. Would be really nice if he was on the top one, but still, he's on that mega line for Boston, and we're just hoping to get a secondary assist or something to flex off his skating in. And besides, he's been playing great this year, so we shouldn't have to justify, oh, we got to sneak him in. I think he's a good bet to register a point in this game, and that's a way you can get the Boston Bruins at plus money. Now, next up, I'm going to talk about a game that's very relevant because of the Oilers win streak. Not necessarily my next favorite one on the night or anything like that, but it is worth mentioning. So this game, you're talking about the Oilers Golden Knights. What are you thinking? Like, what's on your mind right now? What's the final score? Well, I first want you to check two things. Number one, look how the Edmonton Oilers were playing defensively before their break. I think one of the last picks I gave out, the Oilers to win with the under 2.5 for the Nashville Predators. If this was a couple months ago, that would be an asinine bet to insinuate that the Edmonton Oilers can hold anybody under 2.5 goals. But they've been getting great goaltending, and they've been playing way better defensively. Look how many of their games went over in their recent, 5-6 games. Not many. And then on the flip side, you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who are going to be getting William Karlsson back, and you guys know how much I value his presence on the ice. But more importantly, Adin Hill, before the break, was an absolute wall. So you give me a team that's been playing good defense, you give me a goalie that's been a wall, and you give me the whatever you want to call this factor coming out of the All-Star break for teams who are playing their first game. Then the added element of Vegas eliminated the Edmonton Oilers from the playoffs. And now you also have Edmonton trying to get the longest win streak of all time. So there are so many factors up in here. The first thing I'm going to do is take the under 6.5. And believe it or not, I've seen some sites have it at 6. Can you imagine an Oilers game not getting the 6.5 treatment? That's wild, but I got to say, it's borderline deserved. And to me, really, I know the Oilers are playing a little better. Skinner's playing. Adin Hill looked incredible before the break. The Rangers game, the Islanders game. That's what I'm going to put my money on. And the fact that Karlsson's going to be back. We know he's a great two-way center. I'm going under 6.5 in that game. If I had to lean a direction, Mr. Raw Dogs, because of course you got angry. God forbid you allow people to assess what's happening around the league. Come on. No, you want first night? Give me Raw Dogs, because that's a smart thing to do. But if you're going to make me lean a certain direction this game, it's going to be plus 1.5. And yes, you're looking at a big fat price if it's plus 1.5. And you're not an idiot, right? You're not a donkey. Whoever likes how I say donkey, you're not going to combine that with under 6.5 because it's a waste of a goal. You can go to my episode of Picking Corners. I explained it for the 6 millionth time. But what you can combine that plus 1.5 with is the over 2.5 shots on goal for Jonathan Marchessault. He comes up big in these big games. It's 2.5. Many times he has one of those 3.5s. Didn't work out with Rantanen for us last night. I'm hoping that it will work out for us tonight. Give me the over 2.5 shots on goal for Marchessault with the plus 1.5 for Vegas. That was a big game, so I thought I would bring it up and tell you guys how I feel about that one. That ain't the only under, though. We saw the unders last night, saw them going into break, and now we're just hitting even more of them. The next one is the Florida Panthers, Philadelphia Flyers under 6.5. Now, even if this was when the season started, I would say, Panthers have more of a defensive philosophy than they used to. John Tortorella team. These are two teams who fit in that window, but that's not even why I'm making this bet. The playoff-style nasty defense that I saw the Florida Panthers engaging in before the break, and then the solid goaltending they were getting from Bobrovsky. They were strangling the life out of teams. I think they held Pittsburgh to 2, and they scored with seconds left. They held the Islanders to 2, who also scored with seconds left. When you score with an empty netter to score a second goal, I call that holding a team to 1. Because if I see 1 minute on the clock and a home team has 1 goal, That's not easy to do in the NHL. Go into a team's building and hold them to 1 goal. If you score some ruckus-like empty net goal, and then there's just a, melee in front of the net and someone crams it in. When the game is happening, real hockey's happening, 5-on-5, you're holding teams like, Pittsburgh, Isles, whoever, even if they're not great offensive team, when you're in their building, holding them is not an easy feat. Then we obviously remember the destruction that they handed Arizona. And in this game against Philadelphia, the only thing we can say is Philadelphia should theoretically be extremely hungry. They lost every single game since Carter Hart had to depart with that whole legal issue that he's dealing with. They should theoretically be hungry, but that added sprinkle of whatever this thing is before you guys get back into the groove, and Florida playing that great defense, and Bobrovsky playing well going into the break, we know that can change, and the Flyers not having the most offensive firepower. I think they're going 11-7, by the way. I think they're going 7 defense for this game, from what I've been told. I like the under 6.5 there as well. Is that the only one? Is that all you got for it? Well, how about I give you one more? A classic. Maybe it's not a 6.5. I'm not going to give you an under 6.5 because it's listed at 5.5 or 6. So you know what I'm going to do. Don't you know? Bump it up. I'm going to bump up the Winnipeg Jets to under 6.5. They're going to be getting Scheifele back. Scheifele is returning to this game. And I know I've seen a whole season's worth of Pittsburgh not being the offensive team that many thought they were going to be. Now, the first Picking Corners episode I said they're one of my favorite bets to go under on their point total. It's over for them. You're too old, let go. Nobody listen to techno. I've told you guys this multiple times. They're finished. Washington's finished. I'm going to go with the under 6.5 in this game. And in a separate same game, I haven't been a pirate in a while, parlay. Now, Winnipeg held so many teams to under 2.5 goals for their team total. I'm going to go with the under 3.5. You want to know what I'm going to pair that with? Erik Karlsson going under his point total. Why am I choosing Erik Karlsson? Isn't that scary? Well, this is another case of trickle-down snakeonomics. Erik Karlsson has been pulled from the top power play. They're putting Chris Letang, the guy who worked with Malkin and Crosby for years, to try to breathe some life into it and get it going. So what does that mean? We're getting Karlsson's old price, which would factor him being on that top power play. So you're giving us like a plus 105 or something like that, not to register a point against a team. They could shut you down regardless, even if you still were on the top power play. I think that's a good calculated risk. Now, if Winnipeg was a bad defensive team, like if they were playing Ottawa or something like that, and we found out that Karlsson was pulled off the top power play in favor of Letang, I wouldn't focus on Karlsson no point. I would focus on the Chris Letang point, because it's a team who's going to concede. It all kind of depends. That's why there's varying factors. What am I going to do with a trickle-down snakeonomics move against a defensive team? Look for the right guy to maximize the under on a point. If this was the Ottawa Senators, I'm going to maximize a guy who I can get to register a point. That's kind of some of what we do in those situations.
Trust me.
And then lastly, I'll leave you guys off for the thing you guys come here for. The only reason you guys wake up in the morning, and that is to continue to be a parlay pirate. I saw somebody in the comments ask yesterday, well, can somebody please explain to me Ruckus? You can go back and watch some old videos. Oh, but that takes time. So does me explaining it to you every day. So Ruckus is a game where things are going wild. Goals are going in, points are being scored. Because games that have the Ruckus factor, a bunch of goals going in, provide the highest opportunity for you to bang one of those massive same-game parlays. Your exact reason for existence. You wake up in the morning and think, today's going to be my plus 6,000 day. That's what a Ruckus game is. A game with point props all over the place. And that's obviously going to be the Devils and the Colorado Avalanche. Georgiev played fantastic last night. Well, now they're throwing in a backup who they do not trust. We know the Devils don't really play defense. We know they don't get good goaltending. The only thing that's going to be missing from this game is Jack Hughes. He's still on the shelf, but there are still plenty of other opportunities in this game. Now, Mikko Rantanen was really quiet last night, did not look engaged. I think Mikko Rantanen's going to make up for it on this night. Give me 2 points for Mikko Rantanen. Give me 1 point for Jesper Bratt. and I guess give me the over 6.5. Let's see if we can get there. You can sniff your own way, as I like to say. That's probably the game that's going to provide the most opportunities. And maybe a little bonus pick, a little side sniff. I do think the under 6.5 in the Carolina-Vancouver game is a direction that I want to go. That's what I got for you. A lot of raw dogs on this Tuesday episode. That's what you get. You demand it, you get it. Even if I don't want to give it, you still get it. Hopefully you guys give me a like and a subscribe and all that stuff that helps spread this video, because it really does do something. As I've mentioned many times, this isn't one of the, like, if you saw 200,000 views on this video, yeah, I'd actually say to your like probably isn't doing much. Obviously, you can tell every like, every comment, it makes a big difference. It spreads this video to other people who have never seen it, and I really appreciate that from you guys. And as always, if you want to be a minority owner of this show, you know how to do that. You can join the Patreon by going to patreon.com/AndyFrancis, where we have a chat thread, and I can do things like communicate that Zach Parisi bet at the last minute. Maybe I will see you over there, or else I'll just see you here tomorrow for another day of NHL Sniffs. I will talk to you then.